Hey there. Today we're really diving deep into a fascinating dilemma. How do you save paradise from, well, paradise itself?
That's a great way to put it.
We're talking about two islands, worlds apart geographically, yet facing remarkably similar challenges. Sylt, Germany, and Nantucket, USA, both grappling with a double-edged sword of popularity.
It's a story playing out in desirable destinations worldwide, but these islands offer a particularly compelling lens through which to understand the complexities.
Absolutely. And what's so interesting is that to grasp the present, we need to rewind a bit way back to their shared history as whaling hubs. Because when you dig into it, whaling wasn't just an industry, it was the bedrock of their identities.
Precisely. It's easy to gloss over that era, to focus on the brutality of the hunt itself. But to truly understand these islands, you have to understand the profound cultural impact of that legacy.
Okay, so let's unpack that. We're talking 17th, 18th centuries. What was life actually like on these islands?
Imagine a life where the rhythm of the sea dictated everything from the food on your table to the whispers of danger that shaped everyday conversations. In many ways, these island communities were bound together by the shared risks and rewards of the hunt.
So it's not just about, say, economic reliance, but a deeper sense of shared experience that fostered a certain resilience, maybe.
Exactly. Take Nantucket in the 18th century, for example. They were the undisputed titans of whaling, their expertise renowned across the globe. But that success came at a price. These voyages could last years. So you had families enduring prolonged separations, entire communities shaped by the ever-present possibility of loss.
Wow. Talk about an extreme example of how an industry can shape a culture from the ground up.
And it's fascinating to consider how that legacy might still resonate today. Did that history of overcoming adversity, of relying on community, factor into how these islands are now confronting the challenges of their own popularity? Did it instill a certain resourcefulness that's coming into play? These are the intriguing questions we can start to explore.
It's like peeling back layers of history to understand the present. Because, as we know, the whaling industry eventually declined, leaving both Sylt and Nantucket at a crossroads.
And it's from that turning point that we see the seeds of their modern predicament planted.
So we've got these islands steeped in this legacy of whaling, suddenly faced with a changing world. And it's interesting how they both, in their own way, pivoted to a new kind of harvest tourism.
It's almost a natural evolution for coastal communities, isn't it? The very thing that sustained them. The ocean, the unique way of life it fostered that, becomes the attraction.
Totally. But in Sylt's case, there's a specific event that really throws open the doors, right? The Hindenburg Dam.
Precisely. Completed in 1927, this engineering marvel physically connected Sylt to mainland Germany. It's hard to overstate the impact. Imagine suddenly those long sandy beaches, the iconic strand curb, those hooded beach chairs that just scream relaxation. They're all within easy reach for city dwellers craving an escape.
And I've seen pictures of strand curve that look ridiculously comfy. I can totally picture myself curled up in one with a good book.
They are quite inviting, and that's exactly the allure Sylt tapped into.
Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, Nantucket was crafting its own brand of island charm.
Indeed. Nantucket took a different tack, leaning into its unique history and aesthetic. Those cobblestone streets, the meticulously preserved colonial architecture, the rugged beauty of the New England coastline, it all spoke to a sense of timeless elegance.
It's funny you mention that because when I picture Nantucket, it's like stepping into a postcard, all quaint harbors and salty air. And you can't forget the allure of that old money New England vibe. It's almost like stepping back in time.
Exactly. And that proved incredibly appealing to a certain segment of society, particularly those seeking respite from the growing hustle and bustle of East Coast cities. It offered a sense of escape, of exclusivity even.
Which, let's be real, is a big part of the draw for a lot of destinations, even today. That feeling of discovering someplace special, a world away from the everyday. But, and here's where the plot thickens, this popularity comes at a cost, a steep one. And suddenly we're not just talking about the price of a lobster roll.
Precisely. This is where that picturesque facade starts to crack. Because behind those charming facades lies a harsh reality. A housing crisis of epic proportions impacting both islands.
And it's easy to shrug it off, right? Oh, island life, it's always expensive.
Yeah.
But you're saying it goes way beyond that.
Absolutely. This isn't just about wealthy vacationers snapping up beachfront properties. This is about the very fabric of these communities, their soul being threatened.
Okay, so break that down for us. What's actually happening on the ground?
Well, let's look at the numbers. Sylt's year-round population hovers around 18,000. Sounds idyllic, right? But during tourist season, That number explodes to over 150,000.
Wait, seriously, that's more than an eightfold increase. It's like the entire island is playing a giant game of sardines. I can't even imagine trying to find a parking spot, let alone an apartment.
It puts a strain on every aspect of island life. Resources are stretched thin, infrastructure is pushed to its limits, but the most devastating impact is on the people who call these islands home.
Right, because with that kind of influx of visitors comes an insatiable demand for housing, which inevitably drives up prices.
Exactly. And it's not just the cost of buying a home, rents skyrocket too. Teachers, firefighters, artists, the very people who give these islands their unique character, they're being priced out, forced to leave the communities they've called home for generations.
It's that classic case of love it and leave it, but not by choice.
Unfortunately, yes. And this is where the story takes another turn because it's not just vacation rentals fueling this fire. It's the rise of second home ownership.
Okay, so explain that a little bit more. What's the distinction? Well, why does it matter? So second homes, are we talking about people buying vacation homes they might only use a few weeks out of the year?
Exactly. And it might seem harmless at first glance, but when a significant portion of housing stock is sitting empty for most of the year, it creates a real imbalance. Local families struggle to find affordable places to live while houses stand vacant waiting for their owners to swoop in for a week or two of vacation.
It's like the island is holding its breath for most of the year, waiting for that burst of activity. And I can't imagine that's good for the community in the long run.
It creates a ripple effect. Schools struggle to maintain enrollment, essential services face staffing shortages, and that vibrant sense of year-round community starts to erode. It's a complex issue with no easy answers, but both Sylt and Nantucket are actively looking for solutions, which is encouraging.
Okay, so let's dive into that. What are some of the things they're doing to try to address this imbalance? You mentioned community land trusts earlier, and honestly, I'm not entirely sure how those work.
It's a really fascinating model. Basically, a community land trust is a nonprofit organization that owns the land itself. They then lease the land to homeowners at a significantly reduced rate. The homeowner still owns the house, but because they don't have to purchase the land, the overall cost is much more attainable.
So it's like taking that sky-high land value out of the equation? That's brilliant. But what's to stop those homeowners from turning around and selling their homes at market value, essentially profiting off the system?
That's where the community land trust comes in. They place resale restrictions on the property, ensuring that any future sale remains affordable for another local family. So it's not about eliminating profit entirely, but rather ensuring that homes remain accessible to the people who live and work in the community, even as the market fluctuates around them.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. What about other approaches? What are they doing about new construction? Because if those new homes are all being built for vacationers or second homeowners, it doesn't really solve the core problem.
You're right, and both islands are experimenting with zoning regulations to incentivize developers to include affordable housing units in new construction projects. They're also looking at ways to convert existing properties into affordable housing options, perhaps by offering tax breaks or other incentives to owners willing to rent to local residents long term.
Okay, so those are some proactive steps being taken, which is heartening to hear. But what about the elephant in the room, the existing second homes? Are there any discussions about addressing that aspect of the issue?
There are, but they're understandably complex and often contentious. Some communities are considering higher property taxes on second homes with the idea that those additional revenues could be funneled into affordable housing programs or other community initiatives.
I can see how that would be appealing from a funding perspective, but I imagine it's not without its critics.
Absolutely. There are valid concerns about potentially discouraging tourism, which, as we discussed, plays a significant role in these islands' economies. There are also questions about fairness, about whether it unfairly burdens second homeowners, who in many cases contribute to the local economy in other ways.
It really highlights the complexity of the issue, right? You've got this deep-rooted desire to preserve the character of these places, the very essence of what makes them special, while also grappling with the economic realities.
And let's not forget the emotional aspect. For many second homeowners, these islands represent a connection to family history, a place of cherished memories. So it's not just about numbers on a balance sheet, it's about navigating deeply personal attachments to place.
It's about finding that delicate balance,
Yeah.
a way to coexist, to ensure that the magic of these islands remains accessible to everyone, not just a privileged few.
Precisely. And that's why these stories are so important to tell. Because while Sylt and Nantucket might seem like worlds away, Their struggles resonate far beyond their shores. They shine a light on the challenges faced by countless communities grappling with the allure and the burden of their own desirability.
It makes you think about the choices we make as travelers as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's about being mindful of our impact, about seeking out experiences that benefit the communities we visit, not just our Instagram feeds.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the intertwined stories of Sylt and Nantucket, I'm left with a sense of hope. Because despite the challenges, what shines through is the resilience of these communities, their determination to find solutions, to forge a path forward that honors their past while safeguarding their future.
Well said. It's a reminder that even paradise takes work, and that preserving what makes these places special is a shared responsibility.
Thanks for joining us on this thought-provoking journey. We hope it inspires you to learn more about these islands, the challenges they face, and the ways we can all be more conscious travelers and stewards of the places we love. Until next time.